Hi everybody, Kevin Remdy here, and I just wanted to give you a quick introduction to the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit and the Deployment Workbench. As we described, there's some great things that you can do with the Deployment Toolkit, the MDT, such as deploying operating systems to fresh bare metal installations, to be able to use it to build deployment sequences for upgrading and migrating user settings and documents. There's lots of great things you can do with this, but I just wanted to quickly show you some of the areas that you can configure in the MDT and then show you an example of an actual installation taking place. So I have the workbench here, and I've already created a deployment share, and I just pointed to a location that is also a shared location on this server. And the reason that's important is because that's the place where we're going to be putting items for the sake of the deployment. So the share is going to be pointed to from a remote machine that's doing the installation. So all this information that's in this deployment share folder is going to be built for us by the MDT. I'm not going to worry about that just yet. I'm going to show you for now just the areas of the MDT that we can configure. For example, pointing to an operating system and actually adding an operating system to this deployment. Or drivers, packages such as language packs, applications. Here you see we've added Office Professional Plus 2013. And then once those are all in place and they're added to the deployment share, then you can build something called a task sequence. Now the task sequence is that series of steps. It's kind of like a script that it runs through a series of steps, and you can actually customize it after the fact and do some pretty amazing things with it. So for example, creating a new task sequence, give it a name or an ID and then a name. And then choose a template to start from. And for a typical deployment of Windows 8, it's a client task sequence, so we're going to use the standard, and we can, as I said, can customize it at a later time. Select the operating system. Well, here, these are the things that are going to be pulled from the information from the deployment share. So here's my Windows 8 that I've added to the deployment share. I have the ability to add a product key and have it applied at the time of deployment. Operating system settings that can be customized. Even changing the Internet Explorer homepage. Administrator password for the administrator account. And there's a new task sequence. So once we have a task sequence in place and we have all the other pieces there, all we need to do is update the deployment share. And what that does, it goes through it, makes sure that it has all the pieces, it builds items. For example, if I look at the properties of the deployment share, we can see that I'm going to be supporting both x86 and x64 platforms. Where's the UNC path that's going to be applied? So when this installation is happening from a remote machine, this is the share that it's going to use to get at the contents for installation and for the actual task sequence. Here's the rules. We can actually customize this and add additional items to say whether or not we're going to, for example, skip asking for the admin password or asking for the product key and so on. We have the Windows pre-installation environment that we can choose to customize and build actually an ISO file. So let's say I was going to build an x64 or supporting an x64 platform. I could do this. I can actually generate this bootable ISO image that we could then boot to or burn to a DVD or copy the contents to a bootable USB device. So we have the ability to create this bootable device or this bootable installation that will then launch the installation. So a bootable operating system, the pre-installation environment that will launch the task sequence on the remote server from the client that's being installed. So this is what we're actually going to use is this Light Touch PE x64.iso. Now I've already run through and created or updated the deployment share, and I can see if I look at that location again, it created for me this Light Touch PE x64 ISO. So let's say I burn that to a DVD and I put that in the drive or put it in some other bootable device and went to the client. And in fact, here I have a client, and this client is going to start off. In fact, let me just slide it down here so you can see it's actually a virtual machine. I already have in the DVD drive this ISO file that's going to then allow me to boot this bare metal empty hard drive machine into this ISO file and actually do the installation. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's bring that out so you can see it a little bit better. It launches into the Solution Accelerator. And it allows us to run the deployment wizard. So this was all built for us by the MDT. It was really easy to build and create that ISO file that allows us to launch into this wizard. And this is what we're calling, what we call a light touch installation, or LTI, a light touch installation deployment. So it's not zero touch. It does require some feedback. It does require some information. And in our case, we've basically just taken the default. So it's going to ask us a couple of questions during this installation. For example, we need to have some credentials in order to connect to the network share. So we'll use, in our case, a domain account that has permissions to that share. And once that's done, and based on the credentials, we will then see which task sequences we're allowed to use. Now look at that. We actually have that additional one called Windows 8 Deployment that I just built. Well, here's the pre-built one that's all populated, created, ready to go. So I'm going to actually select that one. And I can customize the computer name at this point. I can choose to join it to the domain and add it to an organizational unit if I choose. It populated the administrator account in here for me, but I can change that. It has to be an account that allows me to join to the domain. Now this is interesting, and in my case it's bare metal installation. I don't have any user settings to migrate, or I'm not pulling from another location, but I could actually use this to save off the user's files and settings, move them to a network location, for example, and then also to restore user data. So I could actually say, you know what, I didn't have any information on this bare metal machine to back up, but I do have a location where the user's data already exists, and I can include that as a part of this installation. Which language packs? Remember we added language packs. Set locales. I happen to be in Central Time in Minneapolis here. And select the application to install. There's Office. See the details of the installation, and begin. And there we go. So now, after maybe about 15-20 minutes, what's going to happen here? It's going to install the operating system. It's going to, it's going to be configure the hard drive first. It's going to install the operating system. It's going to then install the applications, make sure the drivers are there, the packages are all installed. It'll reboot. It'll allow me to log in, and I will have everything ready to go. So I'm going to pause the recording here, and we'll come back when when the machine has restarted and logged us in. And here we are back. Now when I came back to this machine, this is what I found. And it looks like we have indeed been logged into Windows 8. And not only been logged into Windows 8, but look at that. It actually installed Office for us. So if I look at the desktop, I can actually see the deployment summary windows come up. And everything looks like it's done successfully. There's no details, no errors, no warnings, which is a very good sign. So you see how easy it was to, with a default installation of the MDT and with just a simple deployment configuration, we were able to add applications, add operating systems, drivers, and then easily build an image that could be booted to in order to then do an installation, light touch installation deployment, LTI. Thanks for your attention. I hope you found this useful, and we'll see you on another screencast very soon. Thanks.